So, London is one of the biggest embassies. It's the place where consular officers, they win once they go through hard details in Pakistan or Afghanistan. They send them to London, which brings back a lot of the hard ways they adjudicate cases in those countries, and they bring it to London. So I've seen a lot of wild things happen in London. That's unbelievable. But at the same time, they're very, very professional. They had a BBC show. I'm not sure you saw it. BBC did this review. I only watched one of them, which was on the travel ban, and it made me want to cry seeing how bad they were like hitting people. But like they did one interesting thing is they had officers call up people who had visas just to double check to see if they left the United States or not, which is kind of weird. I didn't expect them to spend time doing something like that. But London does all sorts of stuff. Where should we start? NIEs, I guess, is the thing that people want to know about. You had sent an email referencing how the airlines are dealing with that. Could you talk about that and the backlog in NIEs right now, and what NIEs are, I guess, in general? Sorry to put you on the spot explaining all this stuff, but there's a lot going on.
I mean, it's pretty much all I've done for the last year.
They create a lot of business, which is good for business, but at the same time, it's the last kind of business you want to do. To ask NIEs is such a worthless kind of thing. Like, you want to work on real cases, so it's so stressful.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it's funny because you're absolutely right. Like, we were very grateful for the work at the beginning when embassies were closed completely and travel bans were in place and a lot of borders were closed. But I mean, at this point, I think most of us who've done these for any kind of volume for the last year are pretty burnt out. I mean, it's essentially taking on somebody else's emergency stress. and I think, again, maybe unique to immigration lawyers, but we actually do really care about our clients and we want to be successful for them. So yeah, there are a few just interesting things about London with respect to NIEs. So we're very lucky in many ways that we do have a CBP attaché at Heathrow Airport, and Heathrow Airport is, I'm sure most people know, it's a very large airport, a lot of international flights, and they seem to at least understand what the rules are, which I think is a benefit as compared to if people are originating flights, from smaller European airports. We've heard, pushbacks. In fact, one of my friends, her husband's Italian, was almost not allowed to board, even though he's married to a U.S. citizen, starting in Bologna, which I think I've heard other people complain about. But anyway, with Heathrow, at least we have people who have knowledge of the rules, which is good. Even if we don't like the rules, at least there's a starting point. But basically, so the email that I sent was more about my experience talking to one of the airline employees. So I think the best way for people who haven't traveled internationally in the last year to think about this, and I have traveled back and forth between the US and UK quite a bit because my husband lives in America. But all of the airlines are interpreting all of the rules for every country that they're flying to, which is crazy. I mean, working against you, if you start in a large airport in the US, like Dallas, Fort Worth, and you're trying to check in, and one country requires this type of COVID test, one country requires this type of health insurance policy, one country requires, vaccine record, but, it's not the vaccine that we had in the US, and so on and so forth. I do have a bit of compassion for these airline employees because it's, we're already struggling with it as immigration lawyers for one country, and they're dealing with a myriad of documents that are going to be challenging at best to verify. But at Heathrow, I was talking to one of the airline employees who does sort of the final check before they allow you to board the plane. And, he was just telling me all of the different scenarios that they've seen, people transiting through Heathrow who make it to the gate and then learn that they're not actually eligible to travel. They said, one of the exceptions for the travel ban is if you're, married to a U.S. citizen or you have U.S. citizen children, they don't have to be traveling with you. They have, I think they said 1 to 2 times a week, they get somebody presenting a fake document to establish that relationship, which they can actually verify from the time you check in to the time you get to the gate. So it was kind of interesting to hear, what is happening on the ground at the point of departure.
It's interesting how you can verify that, because the U.S. has this county by county marriage certificate, maybe state-based, And it's like, I don't even know how to verify that, but maybe they work at the embassy, they have a connection or something like that. And then, yeah, it's just stressful. It causes probably more delays in the airport. The last place you want to be. When I was growing up, I wanted to work in an international crew where I could travel for work and stuff like that. But once I started for immigration and I traveled a little bit at the beginning, I realized how annoying it is to travel for work. And imagine having to get the airlines and deal with airports. It's just obnoxious. So that part is horrible.